In today's video, I'm going to be showing you what a failed PCV valve looks like on a Volkswagen or Audi 2.0 turbo motor. I'll show you some of the problems that it causes with the check engine lights, as well as some of the extreme vacuum that you can see when you remove the oil cap from the engine while it's running. Now, this is an example of extreme crankcase pressure, which is not normal and shows us that we have a damaged valve. Here's a look at the new valve that we'll be replacing today. This is slightly different from the BMW design, but what's nice is that this is really easy to access. It's right here underneath this vanity cover, and it should be able to replace it in about 20 minutes. The other nice thing about the Volkswagen and Audi design is that this piece was only $49 as opposed to almost $200 for all of the tubing and the crankcase valve found on the BMW motors. What happens when these fail is that there's a rubber diaphragm in here that will either get stuck closed or open, and that will cause some extreme crankcase pressure, as you saw here when I tried to open that cap. That was an example of a failure, and this is a really easy test you can do on pretty much any car, is just start it up and remove that oil cap and see if it makes an extreme amount of suction in the crankcase here, which would indicate that there's a problem with the PCV system and or the CCV system in BMW speak, and that's what we're going to be replacing today. And don't forget to replace the gasket that comes separately with the valve. So the first thing I'll do here is throw on a pair of black nitrile gloves to keep my hands and fingernails clean and keep them free of any chemicals that could cause cancer. First step we'll do here is lift up on the vanity cover gently. There's no screws or bolts, this just lifts up. There's some rubber mounting grommets here that just pop on to these little ball fittings. So really easy to just pop this off. Now, as you can see here, this is the valve cover, and this is the valve that we'll be replacing. So there are some Torx screws along the perimeter here to remove. And then we also have some plastic tubing here. There's one connection here and one connection here that we need to disconnect very carefully so that the brittle plastic doesn't break, because I will be reusing these hoses. And once we disconnect these, move some stuff out of the way, and we can get that valve replaced. Now, to remove this first connection, we're going to squeeze one finger underneath, one on top, and then wiggle this out. This was a little difficult, but be careful and take your time with it. And that is an example of what not to do. This was brittle, so it looks like I will be replacing this hose. This one in the back here is a little more difficult. I'm actually, instead of squeezing, I'm going to spread these two clips, one that way and one this way, and then push it out of the valve. Now that the line is free, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 Torx bolts to remove, and we'll replace the valve and the gasket. Here's the Torx bit that we'll need to do this job. It's a T25. And here's number 4. Well, this one looks like it's quite easy to drop. So I'm going to use this extendable magnet here. Keep an eye on that screw to make sure I don't drop it. All right, now's the moment of truth. There we go, quite easy. This one has a production date of 2011, so it is going on 9 years old. Let's wipe some of this excess oil down. And we'll use a needle nose to pull the old gasket out of the valve cover. Now there are some acorns and some mouse food in here, and while that valve's out, it's easy to access, so I'll just vacuum that out really quick. Okay, once again, here's the new gasket. I'll link this in the description below. Press in the new gasket. Once again, here's the new valve. I believe this was the genuine Volkswagen part, Volkswagen Audi. I think it was $49. The aftermarket was $48, and may as well spend the extra $1 and go with the factory original part. And again, this will be in the description below. Carefully position this into place, and we can slowly install the 4 screws. And I'm going to start by installing the one in the middle here, so it sort of props up the whole thing, and we'll do each of these loosely so that we can align each screw. You don't want to tighten one all the way yet. As you can see here, I'm leaving this loose so we can line up the other holes. If we went too tight here, maybe a little bit more difficult to line up the other screws. And finally, we'll get the last one on the bottom. And here's a look at what that looks like. All right, that's all there is to it. Now it's just a matter of plugging in our PCV hoses and connections. There's one right here. There's nice and tight. All right, now we can start the car up, and we will do the oil cap test once again. Much easier, no pressure. Takes virtually no effort to lift this cap off. All right guys, so that has resolved the issue, and I also wanted to show you something interesting. Right now I'm showing 2 codes in this car, P0171 and P0171PD, like the long-term storage. And before I replaced that PCV valve, I actually had 7 codes. So 5 of those codes just miraculously took care of themselves without having to delete it. That was simply by replacing that valve, and I'll show you, I'll insert some photos right here to show you some of those codes that are commonly found when you have a bad PCV valve in one of these cars. So if you notice the check engine light is on, you have some of the associated codes known to be related to that valve. If you start the car, open the hood, and you do the oil cap test like I showed in this video, and you're experiencing a very strong suction. That's another indicator that the PCV valve is bad. And then number 3, finally, another indicator is that if you have like a blown out or leaking valve cover gasket, is another indicator that that PCV valve has gone bad, because it creates excess pressure in the crankcase and it will start to blow out the gaskets on the engine. That can include like the rear main seal, which really sucks, and which is not easy to get to, and then also the valve cover gasket on this car, which of course is much easier to remedy. As always, I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If it was, please click the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.